Turns out he's a major cinephile. They don't watch enough movies! It's a very simple formula! And here we go. So before I start this episode of Nick Nack Goes to the Movies, I have one correction I need to make from last week's Halloween Marathon episode, specifically Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween. Nightmare Before Christmas is actually on the marathon twice, where I was led to believe it was not actually on there at all. I thought it was a strange omission. My mistake. I was a bit tired when I made that last episode. I guess in general I've been a bit tired for the past few months. But to make amends for this grave miscalculation on Nightmare Before Christmas, I wanted to finally make an episode that I have been teasing for not only weeks now, but years. Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween used to have Haunted Mansion, which I talked about last October's family-friendly episode, but it has been years since they have had the Scooby Duology, if at all. I swore it was on there at one point. I haven't seen these movies in ages, but like everyone, the OG animated series slaps. And that is to some of the series. There's many more series than I possibly could have imagined. So many animated movies, but the main original series is available on HBO Max. I remember these live-action movies being a mixed bag, but I feel like the first one was good enough. I actually have never seen the second one until September 19th of 2021. Surprising, I know. But enough time for speculation. I am going to finally decide with you right here, right now, if live-action Scooby-Doo is good, watchable, or just bad, and more importantly, does it belong, nay, does it demand a spot on Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween movie marathon for eons to come? So this cast is surprisingly stacked. I have, of course, talked about Matthew Lillard from Scream fame, and gosh, I really hope that there is some surprise reveal of his existence in Scream 5. I've seen a lot of theories of somehow the TV crushing his head. He's not dead. Maybe he would have been like a reformed villain, kind of like The Following. So TBD if that exists, but I'm hopeful. Maybe a stretch, but I'm still pretty jazzed, to say the least, even if it's just speculation at this point. Really, I just can't wait to see Jack Quaid in the new Scream movie. No matter what, that's officially happening. And of course, The Boys Season 3. With the news of the I Know What You Did Last Summer show seemingly coming out of nowhere, it is surprisingly airing on Amazon Prime as early as October 15th. We do have a very brief teaser that really doesn't give away a whole lot. But we gotta give props to the original two of the main leads in that, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. Their marriage is the most heartwarming thing I can think of with the acting and all that stuff. We've already talked about that franchise on this podcast already, but it is super fun and heartwarming to see how much these married lovebirds have acted together. That franchise, this Scooby-Doo franchise, and even Star Wars Rebels. Obviously, we know who Freddie Prinze Jr. voiced in Kanan Jarrus, but Gellar actually voiced one of the Inquisitors in maybe the second season, the Seventh Sister, for like a handful of episodes. I know, wild discoveries. The last of our main 4 live-action characters is played by Linda Cardellini, another name that might sound familiar to you, you Marvel fan, you, with that new fantastically festive, the other season, not Halloween, but the winter festive version of this fun Hawkeye announcement trailer just this week. It goes without saying that Renner's wife will be in the show, especially with his character being so focused on family. She wasn't seen in the trailer, but we know she will be in here somehow, especially with all the kids who are in there. As far as one-offs, the first of these movies has Mr. Bean and Johnny English himself, Rowan Atkinson. The second movie has both Seth Green and Tim Blake Nelson. So there's some fun bit players as well. Also forgot to mention the voice of Scooby-Doo is Neil Fanning. I didn't know who he was. He's more of a stuntman, including stunt work in the super underrated vampire movie Daybreakers. But I figure we can talk further on his voice and overall how these movies went about making and bringing to life the semi-talking and snacking dog. The original 2002 live-action Scooby-Doo movie immediately kicks off with a remixed, reboot version of the original banger of a theme song. This is brutal. The original Scooby-Doo theme song is one of the best show theme songs ever. I said what I said. I mean, most of the WandaVision themes are pretty tubular too, don't get it wrong, but special place in my heart for the original Scooby-Doo theme. It's a catchy song. And that Drake remix they do, now that's a good remix right there. I have to say, the beginning of this movie finds the Mystery Inc. team on the tail end trap portion of one of their cases. That feels right at home for anyone watching the TV show. The trap of the baddies of the week goes wrong, and inevitably something with Scooby and Shaggy has it still all working out. Velma tries to make things work, but with Daphne constantly getting captured and Fred being overconfident and a smidge self-absorbed, somehow this mess works out in the end. And the villain being Old Man Smithers or something like that, perfection. Simple perfection of nailing everything that make this show great. Now, especially in 2021, Scooby-Doo looks a bit odd, and throughout the movie, the humor associated with Scooby-Doo is the same kind of lazy, terrible writing that feels awful in the live-action adaptation. The TV show version somehow feels smarter, like the animated one, or at least more classic and less what you would get from watching Boss Baby or something like that. And we'll get to an interesting writer bit as we go. Now, they did try and humanize these characters and make them more, have a little bit of conflict, a little strife between the group members. Scooby and Shaggy feel the same, but Daphne feels more helpless and aware of this and annoyed about it. Velma feels a little bit more jealous, and Fred seems downright egotistical. Now, the movie needed to make some conflict to get out of this sitcom feel of villain of the week and nothing matters after each episode. So this movie pretty quickly starts off with our clue-solving crew broken up and living their own lives. What a heartbreaking moment to people watching this in theaters back in 2002. Just 8 minutes into the film, I mean, that's even more hardcore than the 12-minute mark of the Suicide Squad. I genuinely have no clue what a good Scooby-Doo in live action would look like. I mean, this isn't bad, but it isn't grand either, and there truly is some dumb humor littered in this movie. I like that they made Scooby and Shaggy the heart and soul of the team. In the, animated TV show, there's no time for that kind of stuff. It's just the whole group is there and they're good and that's what they do. But it's at the expense of the other three Mystery Inc. members. It would be fine, but I, wish we would have started with something of the team working normally together and kind of not a prequel, like how it all began thing, but something that has them just doing their thing, maybe a big case, and not having this conflict in the group, and building up to that maybe in the second one, and then fixing it in the second one, of course. Starting with a broken team is tough, though. Also, Rowan Atkinson is the perfect oddball actor to play a quirky, scares enthusiast millionaire. Now, while Scooby isn't perfect, that CGI looks like a masterclass compared to the other creatures in this movie. I mean, chalk that up to the times. The Mummy 2 had some brutal rock scorpion CGI, and that came out only 1 year prior. I feel like I've talked about that, not as much as the Rob Zombie dissing in the Halloween franchise, but I really gotta do that Mummy episode one of these days. Another film franchise that used to be in the freeform marathon of 31 Nights of Halloween that has sadly also taken a backseat. I'd rather that than the Alien things, I would say. That being said, I really like the Alien and Aliens thing, but just the sci-fi thing, I don't necessarily need that with Men in Black necessarily. I do enjoy the oddity of making Scooby snacks clear dog treats and having not only Scooby and Shaggy enjoy them, but this clear plant dream girl for Shaggy also eats them. I gotta imagine there is some interesting reason why a product for dogs/people is named after a character in that world who doesn't make millions off of name, image, and likeness. NIL for short. Gotta make some college sport ties once in a while with me, still working in that field. Guess there was a live-action prequel movie that tried to explain there being a recipe for it, but it looks like garbage even from the movie poster. But Arrowverse alum Robbie Amell was Fred, which feels super spot on, especially after seeing the Babysitter movies on Netflix. While these aren't perfect, obviously, there are some moments where this film makes either reference to or just nails things, like the classic team up where Velma calls out Fred for always teaming up with Daphne, and things like that are just fun. To the writer at hand, or one of the writers, random fun fact, how about James Gunn being behind these two movies in some capacity? Not the main person, but to some capacity. Now, I know Like we said, some of the crass humor isn't really my cup of tea, and this movie definitely has that, and the sequel has it a little bit as well. Just a fun fact, though, that James Gunn is attached to these. Maybe one day we can get him to come out with a Scooby-Doo 3. Anything is possible with all these franchises coming out with new entries, like Scream, Halloween, Ghostbusters, and Top Gun, which all have, original franchise actors reprising their roles. Now, no matter what, these movies are just okay. Not amazing, but you know what they are amazing at? Being quirky, fun enough, festive fall film viewing options. Well, we'll get to Monsters Unleashed, but the first one, it's fun enough. I mean, the subtle moments of classic tropes like secret doors with bookshelf locks, ingenious. And regardless of the quality of these overall, they're not the pinnacle of cinema excellence. The casting and acting of the Mystery Inc. crew is spot on and very fun. Once again, yes, these should be a yearly availability option on Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween, period. Okay, yeah, there is something absolutely crass with some of the garbage humor in this movie. They really made Matthew Lillard do some dumb crap in this movie. I honestly forgot about some of that stuff. The same stuff that makes the Shrek sequels so bad. And honestly, I know it's in the first ones too, but Shrek 1 and 2 really are pretty fun. I'll never forget that my mom still doesn't get the point of Shrek. And if you're listening, hi Mom, always be a good jest, a good in-family jest of not getting the true purpose of Shrek. But with all the bad parts associated with the junk humor in this franchise, live-action Scooby-Doo, those moments that are spot on with the source material, like hiding in suits of armor, are so good. That, and of course, Velma losing her glasses and the whole monster mask fake out. I mean, they even go out of their way to use the phrase, "Scooby-Doo, where are you?" on numerous occasions, rightly so. I knew one of these movies had Scrappy-Doo in it, and I remember that being, not so good. I don't remember Scrappy being the worst thing in the original TV show, but now that I remember this stuff a bit, they 100% made him a full-on villain. I didn't love him in the show, but he wasn't the worst. He definitely wasn't the best, but not the worst. But here he's the main villain in the first movie, once again. Would have been interesting to build up to something like this as opposed to show a little cutaway, but it's what it is. And, I know he's not in the second one, so it's more of a one-and-done thing. Also, the show is known for dumb but hilarious multiple-door hallway chase scenes. The movie tried its gosh darn best, but that is, in live action. Try imagining it, it wouldn't work. They do the crazy sped-up fast motion thing, which I don't like, and I think I've talked about that here as well. I just wish there was some even weird, subtle nod to it, and this way they did it, not perfect. Look, adapting a child's cartoon for live action movies is never going to be amazing and sensational, but gosh darn it, they tried their best. And once again, this works as a fun Holly movie that feels way more in season compared to Shrek, Monsters Inc., and Men in Black. And I know I listed those two on the graphic, Men in Black and Shrek, mostly because I just haven't seen them in a while, but I don't think either of them belong on the Halloween list, and these Scooby-Doo movies way more on brand. This may not be taking place in the fall, and it may not be 100% Halloween, but it's at least 80% with an air quotes spooky part. And the mystery and intrigue are super good. There is something nice when the team eventually reunites and the full squad that we've grown to love from the animated show, they kind of come back and really are a team again. But I really do wish we could have seen this in movie 1, even though there is a really nice friendship message overall. Unrelated, Bro Fred and overall dancing of Freddie Prinze Jr. is super special. Same with Matthew Lillard. How is this dance not on TikTok celebrity status yet? Everyone's in their berries and cream thing. I always thought it was batteries and cream. Clearly not. I can try to make it a thing, but it's not a guarantee that I can be the best social media influencer on the interwebs yet. I don't have a He's All That, She's All That reboot to my name or a Hulu show. Maybe one day, but not yet. Now, this movie is a bit more supernatural, not unlike some of our animated movies. There's the one with the vampire zombie ladies, there's alien invaders, there's Ghoul School, which I remember being pretty fun. The cyber chase one, I definitely remember. I mean, there is a plethora. There's the Wiccan band one in Salem. I really should try and go to Salem for something in October just for the ambiance of it. I should really make a footnote to do it. I think that'd be a fun trip for yours truly. Random fun joke in the movie. Having someone named Melvin do as a random name drop twice is subtle, but surprisingly hilarious. This movie has moments of genuine, like, timeless humor and vintage Scooby-Doo fun. But there's also stupid, massive Scrappy-Doo CGI monstrosity in the end, which looks terrible. Look, I've said it once, I'll say it again. CGI villains in the end, no matter if it's a comedy, a horror, action, whatever it is never good. Never good. In the same way that we talked about disaster movie endings of cataclysmic waterfalls breaking over stuff. It's just never good. Cardinal sin of movies as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, it may be worse than Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town, and it may be less iconic, but gosh darn it, this movie is perfect for October to Halloween family-friendly viewing if you need a break from those two clear icons of the season and with that viewer audience in mind. Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, 2004. Honestly, I can say, like, I watched it a few minutes. I really wanted to see, had I seen this before? I had never seen this live-action sequel. I definitely saw the first one. I've never seen this. I don't know if I've seen it to the end, but I've definitely seen it. But I must have, because I knew the Scrappy-Doo tease as soon as I saw that character included in the movie. But Monsters Unleashed, I mean, I was jazzed for Seth Green, Tim Blake Nelson, who also really needs the Zemo MCU treatment. I mean, I'm not saying it's official like Sam Rockwell and the Armor Wars and more, but if Tim Blake Nelson and Liv Tyler can be back for She-Hulk with Tim Roth, who is confirmed with Mark Ruffalo, just more interconnectivity. And really, I think we really gotta find a way to get Universal's 2008 Incredible Hulk back into the fray, and hopefully on Disney Plus one of these days. But to this spooky sequel, let's see if it's more Twitches 2 or more Halloween Town 2 Calabar's Revenge. Some of these late 90s and early 2000 movies you can spot immediately, not just by bad CGI, but these weird fake-looking city tours for the opening credits. 90s Batman and so many more movies did this like weird, bad-looking thing. It's in the same family as the over-the-top DVD VHS title menus that had 3D antics all over the place before you could click on play movie. I remember X-Men 3, The Last Stand, for sure had that in spades. Yes, the Mystery Inc. stretch limo and Shaggy in like a ruffly dress tux. So many amazing things early on. I don't know what the most iconic Freddie Prinze Jr. role is. I would love to say Kanan Jarrus, probably not Ray Bronson. Most would say guy from She's All That, haven't seen that, or He's All That. Not my cup of tea. You know sitcoms aren't my bag. But he is perfect for the role of Fred. Once again, overall, this casting of live-action Mystery Inc. is spot on. And I don't know what it is, but the Dinkley Brigade as a thing is hilarious. In the same way that Shaggy smells his fans has to be like a great not-so-subtle weed joke. It's definitely not a food thing, so it has to be a weed thing. Also, remember that the town they're from is Coolsville. How wild is that? I mean, the museum's opening is called the Coulsonian Criminology Museum. That is the kind of humor that 90s Batman, and maybe even 60s Batman, those were littered with. And I'm all about it and here for it. Velma and Seth Green having a slow-mo geeky moment to, Clayton is also perfect, just perfect. And like the emotional relationship not happening was more emotionally heartbreaking than any Avengers Infinity War and Endgame moments combined. I gotta say, the setting of their own clubhouse also super groovy, and setting it like it's just totally tubular. Have a TV made of wood. I had one of those back in the day that like comes up and down from the table. Mine did not do that back in the day. Wild. And it's fun seeing the entire team together for a bit, even if they do rag on Shaggy and Scooby a bit. But I gotta say, like, the new setting overall, not just having it this, isolated one-off beach trip, as opposed to there's a whole city and there's mansions and there's just so much to do and play in this world. And, while this story feels more personal, the ties to the old show, like the different ghosts, the Black Knight ghost and more, it's a nostalgia blast. And it definitely is like, I was like, there's no way I've seen this movie before. It all felt new to me. And I kind of wish that wasn't the case, because this was a fun time. I think some of the Scrappy-Doo stuff in the first one made it so I thought, I don't need to watch the second one. It's probably worse. But, I don't think that's the case. While the first movie was fun and obviously supernatural, this movie feels right at home with the Scooby-Doo that I remember. I'd say I grew up with, but the originals were all 60s, late 60s, and 70s. The newest Scooby-Doo to my childhood was the '02 What's New Scooby-Doo. And I know this one is supernatural too, but look, even some of the animated movies were supernatural. I will say CGI Scooby-Doo is growing on me, or was growing on me. Now that I've, seen both movies back to back, it doesn't seem as brutal. Even the monsters to start this movie are better up close, even if the credit CGI thing was appalling. Some of the jokes are still pretty groan-worthy, but I did like the barricade scene, not from, Les Mis, the barricades, but like the ghost was grabbing things to help them build the barricade. Vintage Scooby-Doo hijinks. I also do like this movie's series as a whole gives Daphne more to do from an action standpoint, not just being there to get kidnapped. And speaking of Daphne, there's some really nice emotional moments of dating advice between Daphne and Velma. Sure, it doesn't fully land the first time, but it's not supposed to. It's, have a little conflict in there. But having, this discussion on the fear of intimacy thrown in, unexpected for a movie like this. There's also something fun about the existence of an entire bar called the Faux Ghost, which has like all these unmasked villains of the past. It's something truly amazing. I wish I had seen this movie way before. There was so much littered, even just advice through this. And like, obviously that's hilarious, but there's some really deeper ties when you dive into this movie. But having a real life villains club in the world is like a super fun idea. And it's so goofy and zany, and I'm totally here for it. It feels like it's something that would fit right into, like I said, 90s Batman. It's something that I've talked about a lot. And specifically, another thing I got to bring up about it, I was trying to figure out who this reporter was, played by the actress Alicia Silverstone. And she was exactly in one of those movies. In this moment, it was Batman and Robin, and this was the actress behind Barbara Wilson and Batgirl. I didn't always love the writing of the first one, but here there's a few great lines. We gotta make like your personality and Split, that is very good. I mean, even Old Man, whatever his name is, maybe it's Smithers or Jenkins or some other classic Scooby-Doo Old Man, whatever. And he's like, those dang bushes yelling at me again. Also hilarious. It's just strange, but like not grown. It's just weird and funny. Also, Fred having to balance giving woman advice and being just awful at it may not be vintage TV Fred, but they really could not have done better with that casting. And we know they had to develop these characters a little bit to take them away from the animated setting, but I do enjoy live action Fred and original animated Fred for sure. Also, for true Warner Brothers synergy, we talk about something that maybe Space Jam 2 could have learned from. Speaking of throwing just licensed properties all over it, I haven't seen Player One. I don't know how it does there, but I know that Space Jam 2 was very bad with throwing its synergy all over the place. Like, in this movie, there's this part with the mad science, like, projects of pouring these vials on and changing into stuff. Having Scooby become the Tasmanian Devil, super good. I mean, the Rick and Morty Space Jam 2 thing was fun with the Tasmanian Devil as well, but so much of that movie was just not good. I'm still baffled by how bad Space Jam 2 is and how much I was blown away by how it just wasn't good. Also, another one of those Scooby-Doo villains, I was trying to think which ones I remember, and there's the guy in like the diver's suit. There's some version of a pirate, but I for sure remember Minor 49er because it rhymed, and football, and I guess other things. I don't know. I liked Westerns also as a kid. Not super as a kid, but I feel like my mom got me into a few Westerns here and there. I remember that one for sure, though. These monsters aren't the best CGI, but they look way better compared to what we got in the first movie. And I love the thematic nature, overall look of them, and like how it relates to the Scooby-Doo franchise as opposed to the more movie-specific thing. Like, all these villains are people that if you watch the show, you would have been like, I don't want to say geeking out or freaking out, but you would have been a little bit excited. You would have been, wow, look, there's that one I remember from my childhood cartoon that I watched. That's how I was like. I was pointing them out. I was excited about it. Actually, the worst CGI in this movie, unrelated to the intro credits, came from this like bad stunt set piece moment of grinding down a big mountain because like the monsters are like, there's a big ghost pirate ship, and that all looked pretty good, all things considered. The tar monster was iffy, but good enough. But this weird like skating down the mountain thing looked terrible in CGI. I actually like that there are multiple potential baddies who could be the main villain in this. It always kept you on your toes guessing who could be behind it all. And, that mystery thing should be a part of Scooby-Doo, not just eating weird food and running back and forth between rooms and unmasking people. It's part of the fun of it. Who could it be? The journalist, Tim Blake Nelson, the old man guy, or Seth Green? Even getting Fred to have we talk about all the development that a lot of these characters have had and all the self-doubt. Fred kind of always seemed above it all. But even him having a suffering of confidence and identity is something fun to explore. Like, the media's taking stuff out of proportion. He's normally the big media darling. And it's, like I said, adding depth to characters. If anything, super negative of these movies, the pop music overall is, pretty bad. The choices almost never seem to work. I would say there's maybe, one really good musical moment, having Fred taking on the Black Ghost Knight to Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, jousting on motorcycles. Even though he's losing this joust and it should be more dangerous than that, I enjoy that concept. And this movie does get a little wild and out with the end. It's like Annabelle Comes Home. Just everything is flying at you a mile a minute. I mean, there's something fun about seeing all these vintage villains in live action, and it's not feeling so much like a mess. It's more of just a really fun time, which I think is what I said about Annabelle Comes Home as well. Of just Avengers 2.5, classic Conjuring thing of just things happening a mile a minute and people just touch on everything. One of these days, maybe I'll watch that again during Halloween. I don't really want to get with any of those weird The Nun movies, but I don't think The Nun's in it. Annabelle Comes Home, I'm pretty sure. Hopefully not. We'll see. That's like seeing the spiders in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings again. It's just things you want to just avoid if you can for future duration. But back to this movie. The jokes are better. They're less crass. It's not gone, but there's less at least. And they made the special effects a bit better overall. But I didn't expect this movie to be super heartwarming. Color me impressed and surprised. Now, they did it in the first one, they did it again. The weird cover of the Scooby-Doo theme song is still not it. The original is the best for a reason. At some point, you gotta stick with the original. You can't mess with the originals. I have to say, the endgame moment of Scooby and Shaggy saving the day and helping, just doing what they do, but solving the mystery was a big moment. I'm so happy also that the news person was the villain, even if it was a double mask thing and all a farce and Tim Blake Nelson was the real villain all along. But in short, I was really happy that Seth Green was a good guy after all, and Velma got to have a true love romance moment. The second one was really better than the first. I mean, these were all not perfect, but still, what do you expect from a live-action Scooby-Doo movie? Also, Ruben Studdard was in the end some more American Idol things that really put the time period of American Idol Season 2 in perspective. And it's a pretty good, pretty fantastic Shining Star cover in the faux ghost bar. Gosh, they made movie enders with just dancing up and down the aisle way differently back in the day. Not a terrible end, but just different. They would never do that again. So let's get to some Letterboxd rankings and ratings. Now, I know there's a ton of animated Scooby-Doo movies, shows, and some seemingly garbage live-action things with Robbie Amell. We're going to talk about the two movies we have. So I was not anticipating this, but at 2 we'll put Scooby-Doo, and at 1 we'll put Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. Shocked, I know, but I think Scooby-Doo 2 had a little more heart, and you'd think that would have helped get it to, making a trilogy of some kind, but I think people probably saw Scooby-Doo, which I still don't think was bad, but the scrappy stuff maybe scared some people away from it. But I had Scooby-Doo at a, respectable enough 2.5 stars, and Scooby-Doo 2 at 3 stars. I think also respectable. Higher than I anticipated for any of these. I mean, a 5's middle of the road. I think most movies fall in that 6-7 category. 5's, just under it. But unless you're getting a 4 or less, I think you're okay. Like I said, I'll even watch a 4 every once in a while if I have to. So in short, yes, these Scooby-Doo movies are for sure fun. Great for family-friendly October merriment. And definitely belong on the pantheon of every year, every season, freeform 31 Nights of Halloween marathon films, along with Casper, Nightmare Before Christmas, the entire Halloween Town franchise, maybe skip the 4th. Ghostbusters 1 and 2, we'll see about Afterlife. I'm very optimistic. Hocus Pocus, every Harry Potter, even the Spider one. Twitches, only the first one. Beetlejuice, Haunted Mansion, and many more. Well, what was your must-watches for Halloween. And what did you think of the live-action Scooby Dooby Duology? Let me know on social at either knickknack_IC or knickknackmovies on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, TikTok, YouTube, and of course Letterboxd, where you can check out this list and many more of my rankings. Well, cheers, and as always, until next time, cinephiles. Are you not entertained? I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I don't like goodbyes. Let's just call this see you later, alligator.